NeonicVoid Productions presents.
God, we really got to figure out like a proper intro for this because I never know what to say. Like, hi, hello, we've been doing book watchers for the past 2 years, and I still don't know how to start this damn podcast. Oh, hey, there's our intro right there.
Yeah.
Wait, has it been 2 years, or has it been more than 2 years? I feel like
It's been the first episode was back in 2021.
Oh, so 3 years.
3 years, June 17th.
Okay, so yeah, so hey, welcome.
Years. Yeah.
Oh my God, welcome to Book Watchers,
God.
where we've been recording for almost 3 years now, and I still don't know a good intro for this damn podcast. Hi, how are you? My name is Jacob.
That is an intro. Hi, I'm, you know me, you love me. I am the ginger that's always on your screen or in your ear every morning and or night. Devin, what's poppin'? I know I'm amazing. I know it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. Side note, I can't wait to play D&D in like 2 weeks on Sundays because I've been dying to get back into that game, which at some point I will post. My God. Anyway, so welcome to Book Watchers. Hi, how are you?
Housekeeping. Take it away.
Oh, housekeeper isn't here. That's just gonna be me. So in the description below, if you happen to look in there, if you just like, click that little link to a link tree, you will see the lovely links to all the other podcasts in the NeonicVoid Productions, as well as the YouTube channel if you want to see my lovely face and unfortunately his. But my ginger beard is gorgeous. Go to YouTube, watch it. And then watch me throughout the whole episode just kind of zone out as Jacob rambles about an amazing book he's talking about. Because I do zone out sometimes.
You straight up fell asleep.
One time. Not on camera though. But I did
this
one
was before
time.
We did camera, but you did it one time. You straight up fell asleep.
Yep.
And I understood because you were like running on 3 hours of sleep at the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was insulted because, am I really that boring to listen to? Like, the fuck?
No, your voice is soothing, Jacob.
Yeah, that's what
that's
what I thought.
You have a voice for you have a face for podcasting. Damn, I bet you to Phil. You got a great voice for podcasting. Oh, don't give me that side. Don't give me that. Oh, I see what you're doing. You're fucking situating your jaw, you fucking weirdo. Who are you trying to impress?
Our listeners.
Is there a particular listener now?
No.
Oh, have you told? You haven't spelled that T? He doesn't know about that part yet?
No, because I don't know. Lately, I noticed that people have been giving podcasters a lot of shit because you mentioned the fact that you have a podcast. Somehow that makes you weird, and it's something people do for fun. It's all right.
We're just a couple of faggots that talk about shit.
Yeah, and I don't know. I got to do more research, but how many book podcasts do you know?
There's probably quite a few.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But how many review books specifically that have been made into
That's fair.
Yeah, into fair. Shows or movies, be it animation or live action.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that's our brand. We are the book watchers. All right, we watched movies, found out, oh, there's a book. We read the book, and we're like, oh my God, this story is so much better. And there's just so much.
There is. Oh,
Mhm.
also side
Like-
side note. I finally finished this book. I finished it. Mhm. So eventually I'm going to talk about it. And those of you listening, The Fourth Wing. It's good. It's spicy. I'm not one for hetero spiciness, but let me tell you. Mm, 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 mm. But
You heard it
that's,
here you heard it here, folks.
hey, I'm a bisexual faggot. It's a thing, okay? I may be gay as hell, but I'm still a little, itty bitty little straight.
You're gayer than me.
And I still like women. So, and I'm in a gay relationship.
That explains your fascination with titties.
When you see a nice pair of titties, you can't say no. It's nice pair of titties on a man or
Yeah,
on
I can.
on a man or a woman.
See, okay, a man, I will never say no.
Titties or titties. Okay. Bayonetta, freaking Lady Dimitrescu, step on me. Yes.
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Not the kind of titties I'm looking for.
mm-hmm. Henry Cavill, titties.
That's
Titties.
better. Okay, anyway, so we're not here to talk about titties. We're here to talk about books.
I mean, books have titties in them.
Or titty books.
Titty books?
That's not the kind of content we're doing here.
But we could.
But we won't.
You won't.
Okay, we've already have technically, because since we reviewed like the Green Creek Chronicles and Bear Otter and the Kid, those are pretty spicy books. We never did Tales from Verania, have we?
Not yet. I want to, but I need to get through them all first.
Well, hurry up. You just finished The Fourth Wing, so...
I have the Iron Flame to do, the second book, and then I'm going to go back to Tales of Verania.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You gotta expose yourself more to that gay unicorn, man.
I need some good gay spice.
Gary the gay hornless unicorn.
Me.
Like, my God, that he is you. That's you at your core. Anyway, so enough about titties and gay unicorns.
Speaking of gay
Put it down.
unicorns. Wait, remember when you talked to me about it? I found this in the middle of the street and I'm like, it's destiny. I'm taking this home.
It
with
is
me.
destiny.
I don't know
because
whose it was or where it belongs to, but it's mine now.
Yeah, like literally when I started reading the first book, The Lightning Struck Heart, as the character known as Gary, the gay hornless unicorn,
No.
I was reading it and just reading the dialogue between him and the main character, and I was like, whipped out my phone, pulled up Messenger, and messaged Devin here like, you're a gay hornless unicorn.
I was offended. So offended.
And then
What
he
the
read the book,
fuck?
and then he started reading the book, and he's like, "Oh, I see it now."
Yeah, I see it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wrong. But that's a future series for another day. Today, we're going to continue on our mystical journey through the
Wheel of Time
series.
Yes, people, we're not. Oh, I was about to say we're not even halfway through, but yeah, we are.
We're halfway.
We are, and today we're reviewing book 8 of the Wheel of Time.
Hell yeah!
And so, book 8 is titled Path of Daggers, and some very awesome stuff happens in this book. I think the most interesting thing, the most interesting thing that happens in this book happens right off the bat. So it's not like dragging through an entire book only for it to have like this one big climactic battle or event happen.
Mm-hmm.
right off the bat, like, because for the past two books, so since book 6, and I think they hinted at it in book 5, or like they started noticing it in book 5, and then book 6 came around, and everybody was like, "Hey, winter should be in full swing, but it feels like we're in the middle of summer. It's a drought. It's hot. You got to do something about it." Because Dark One had locked the seasons in place. So instead of it naturally progressing through the summer into fall and then winter, it just stayed like in the middle of summer. Like, if you live here in the southern United States, by the time August comes around, that is probably the hottest month for us. June and July, nope, those are chill compared to August, because then August comes around and it's hot. That's the hottest and driest month typically, because like here it's already May and it's getting warmer, but it's like still we've been getting a lot of overcast weather, especially here in Texas. We've been getting a lot of overcast weather. It's still pretty wet, but once we get into late July into August, it's going to like become drier. We're going to get more sunny, clear days, and it's going to be hot as balls.
Yeah, sure is.
So imagine that, hot as balls, and we're not talking like not to drag people from our viewers from the UK, but I remember reading an article that you guys had a heat wave, but it was your so-called heat wave was crisp 88-degree weather, and I'm talking 88-degree Fahrenheit. I don't know the Celsius conversion, but here in San Antonio, Texas, 88 degrees is actually a nice, cool day.
Yes, but you also gotta remember they're not used to that weather.
I know.
They're used to like it being like 60s, 70s, or whatever.
Hey, people from the northwest, the northeast, people from the northeastern part of the U.S. where it gets like routinely below zero, and they have really cold weather. They give us Southerners nothing but shit mercilessly for not being able to handle a little below freezing weather, like 30-degree weather. All right, so as a Southerner, I am not going to hold back on the shit talk. They get all like, oh, -30? That's nothing. That's a warm day. Oh, 88 degrees? That's nothing. That's a cool day for us. We get 116-degree weather.
Yeah. God, I'm not looking forward to summer.
Mm-mm. Anyway, so that's pretty much the kind of weather the Dark One locked the world into. And
that dirtbag.
And Elaine and Nynaeve were sent to Ebudar to find a particular ter'angreal called the Weather Bowl, or the Bowl of Winds, because this ter'angreal has the ability to control the weather. Now, this ter'angreal, just a little backstory about it, it was created during the Age of Legends as a device to regulate the weather. Now, typically, a weather bowl would you only need like one person or a couple people linked together to use it, and it'll, depending on how you use it, it'll regulate the weather. But thing is that our girls aren't really sure how to use it properly, and they want to use this weather bowl to its full power to completely unlock the seasons and get things back into motion, because they were supposed to be in the middle of winter. They need to get it back into winter, because eventually people are going to start starving. Their game and crops are going to completely dry out, and it's going to cause more problems down the line. So we need to get things back into motion. So they came up with a plan to enlist the Athenmere Windfinders to help them use the weather bowl, because the Athenmere, as it turns out, are incredible weather workers. In fact, one of the Forsaken commented that the Windfinders, their weather working abilities is even better than than the weatherworking abilities of people from the Age of Legends. Hell, in the Age of Legends, most channelers relied on the Weather Bowl to control the weather rather than their own weaves.
Mhm.
But the Windfinders, over the past 3,000 years, have developed such complex and such sophisticated weatherworking weaves that a weather bowl isn't really necessary for them, at least on the scale that the weather bowls were originally used. But now, with this one weather bowl that they have access to, they need it using the full strength of 13 channelers linked together and channeling simultaneously into the bowl to unlock the weather, to break the Dark One's grip on the world. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, because there's a lot that does happen in this book. Now, of course, there is pretty much a lot more politics involved, and we're also going to see with Rand that he's beginning to suffer from the effects of the taint on the source.
Mhm.
So, when he began channeling in the first half of this series, he's always been able to sense the taint on the male half of the true source, and he's always described it as like this oil-like corruption. It sits right on top of the vast ocean that is Sidon, the male half of the source. So while Sidon itself remains pure, the corruption sits on it like like a layer of oil on an ocean. So in order to reach and grab a hold of Sidon, you have to reach through that filth. And so when you're drawing Sidon into you, you're pulling the taint into you as well. Now, at first, Rand was able to ignore it, and it really didn't have much effect on him. I mean, maybe like a little bit of nausea here and there, or just that feeling of uncleanliness whenever he would draw on the source. But now, in this book, we're going to start seeing him suffering more adverse physical effects from embracing the source, because now Rand is beginning to experience strong dizzy spells, extreme nausea. At one point, he actually did, when he embraced the source, he actually loses control of his continence and vomits uncontrollably, and he's having a harder time keeping a grip on his emotions. So he's having more bouts of aggression. He is struggling to keep control of himself because he actually can hear the voice of Lews Therin Telamon, his past life. And while he's determined it's that him being able to hear Lews Therin is not really a side effect of the madness, but really him just recalling his past life's memory. But still, this memory has a mind of its own, and he has to not only fight to keep control of Sidon, but make sure that Lews Therin doesn't try to seize it, because Lews Therin is mad as fuck. He is completely insane. Most of the time, he's just like this babbling, incoherent voice in the background of his mind. But sometimes, under certain stimuli, like when he's embracing the source, or if he's dealing with as a shaman, Lews Therin becomes more violent and more harder to ignore. And at some point, Lews Therin himself tries to take control and seize control of Sidon from Rand. So Rand has to fight harder to keep in control and keep Lews Therin from taking over. And he also has to deal with dissension among the Ashaman, because already the Ashaman have proven themselves to be very effective in battle, especially with the infamous Battle of Dumai's Well. And they've proven themselves to be efficient trackers. They've helped him keep the Aes Sedai that Rand has under his control in control. And having them present also seems to keep other lords under Rand's control in check. So let's go ahead and get into it. Throughout this book, we're also going to be seeing more from we don't really see much. Oh, I'm sorry. We actually don't see much of. Uh, we don't see Matt at all because after the events of Book 7, we're not going to see or hear from Matt until the next book. Well, actually, hold on. I'm sorry, not the next book. Yeah, it is the next book. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm all over the place. So we actually do get to see more of Matt in book 9, but in book 8, we're kind of left hanging, wondering: is he alive? Did he survive the Shan Shan attack of Ebu Dar? Because the Shan Shan have made their move. They've already taken Tenshiko and Amadisha, which is the home country of the White Cloaks. The White Cloaks have all but been dismantled by the Shan Shan, and now they've attacked Ebu Dar and taken control of it.
Mm.
And Rand does find this out later on, and later on in the book he does come into direct confrontation with them, and in an attempt to push them, not only push them away from the borders of Ilion, which is now under Rand's control. He also was hoping to take the fight directly to Ebu Dar, but we'll see more of that later. We don't see much of Egwene in this book. There are some small scenes with her. She's slowly moving her forces north to Tarvalon. Thing is that the whole confrontation with Eleda and Tarvalon is being dragged out. She does Towards the end of this book. She does give the order for her forces to completely move all the way towards Tarvalon, and they accomplish this by opening a massive gateway outside to the fields outside of Tarvalon, and all of her forces, all the Aes Sedai and the soldiers that Gareth Bryn had recruited for her, all move through. They completely bypassed Andor in the process because Saladar was in Altera, which is a country on the southern coast of the Westlands. And in order to get to Tarvalon, they would have had to cross all the way through Altera, through the small country of Mirandi, through Andor, until eventually reaching Tarvalon. Uh, but when they reached the border of Mirande and Andor, they were met by a large Andoran force because the Andorans weren't really, they weren't entirely, what's the word? They weren't eager to get involved in an Aes Sedai conflict because it's at this point, even though Eleda has done everything she could to keep the division in the White Tower under wraps, it's pretty common knowledge now that the White Tower is divided and there's a large rebel force of Aes Sedai that are currently going against the White Tower. So the Andorans kind of blocked them from going any further, but after some back and forth and with them, and then also Egwene actually makes a huge power move because many of the sitters that work under her have been trying to control her and direct her actions. Basically, they're really trying to make Egwene into a figurehead and make it clear that she's not in control. Egwene makes a huge power move that not only ensures that she's the one in charge, not these sitters, especially there are two sitters that are rivals to each other. They're constantly making all these political moves behind Egwene's back, and they're constantly trying to control her. And at one point, they try to blackmail Egwene, but Egwene manages to get one over both of them and makes it very clear that under no circumstances are they going to be in charge. They're sitters for the hall, and their job is not to direct or control the movements and the decisions of the Amyrlin seat. Their job is to advise her and help her enforce the laws that she sets in place. So she basically puts her foot down, and now she has the entire rebel hall of sitters under her control, and she gives the order that they're going to move. They're going to go ahead and move their entire force to Tarvalon with no delay, and they do this by using a linked circle of 13 channelers. They open a massive gateway. Their whole forces move to Tarvalon, and at that point, we don't see much more of them from this point on. And there's going to be a few small scenes. I will say that the Forsaken themselves are beginning to become more of an organized force rather than a bunch of idiots doing their own thing. Because at first, when they were all released from their imprisonment in Shile Gul, they all scattered throughout the Westlands and began doing their own thing. So we already knew that Bilal had taken control of Tyr before Rand came and killed him. Samael had Ilion. Grendel is currently in. I was about to say Ebudar, but it's not Ebudar. It's this another. It's Oh my god, hold on. Let me look at the map. I know where she is. I just like I'm totally blanking on the name. Eridomen, that's where she is. So Grendel is hiding in Eridomen. She took over their capital city. And Masana, she hid herself.
Work on your camera is being weird where you're facing like.
Yeah, I know. It's because I'm on my phone and I'm.
Oh.
There we go. Sorry, my computer is not working right now, guys, so I have to record from my phone. Anyway, the Forsaken Masana has hidden herself in Tarvalon of all places, and she's taking a more direct role in controlling the Black Aja that are still hidden there. At one point, Ravin had hidden himself in Camelin, the capital of Andor, before Rand came along and killed him. Moghedien had hidden herself in Tanchico, but then she was driven out by Nynaeve and Elaine. Lanfear was pretty much independent, same as Asmodean. Those two were just doing their own thing, going from places to places. Semiraj, as it turns out, as we will find out later on, had hidden herself in the Empire of the Shan-Shan. And Ishamel was directing them all from the shadows, or at least trying to, before he died. And thing is that at this point, more than half of the Forsaken have been killed. So Ishamel was killed, Agenor and Balthamel had been killed, Lanfear had been killed, and Ravin had been killed, and so is Samael. And the thing is that the Forsaken don't stay dead. Their souls belong to the Dark One. And as a result, they just get reborn. So at the moment of their death, the Dark One, depending on the circumstances of their death, this Dark One will revive them and put their souls in a new body. And he's done that with several of them already. In fact, we've already seen the reincarnation of Ishamel. He was that mysterious figure that appeared in Shadar Logoth, and he had helped save Rand from Nashadar. So his soul had been placed in the body of a young man. He's about the same height as Rand, but he has dark, wavy hair and dark eyes. And the thing is that he no longer goes by the name Ishamel, which in the Old Tongue means betrayer of hope. He now goes by the new name Moradin, which is the Old Tongue word for death. And the thing about Ishamel is that Ishamel, even in his new life, is batshit crazy. And that's because Ishamel no longer uses the true source. Instead, he completely relies on the Dark One's power, which is called the true power. So the Dark One's power is similar to the Creator's power, which is the true source. Except, whereas the true source is a force of light and creation, the true power is a force of darkness and destruction. And pretty much like the true source, the true power has a stimulant effect. So it is highly addictive. But unlike the true source, the true power is even more addictive, and it actually causes physical changes in your body. The most prevalent change that you will notice is the appearance of these black spots that move around, these black spots that appear on your eye. Mogedion calls them Sa, SAA, that's how you spell it, Sa. And the more you use the true power, the more these little black spots begin to appear in your eye. And while they don't obscure your vision, they are very noticeable. And I think it's hinted that eventually the saw will completely turn your eyes black. And while I'm not entirely sure what other physical changes it causes to your body, it's hinted that it does have, using the true power there are consequences to using it. So it's hinting that it may cause further degradation of your body, unlike the true source, which has more of like health benefits, like it extends your life and it makes you feel more alive, which is where the addictive quality comes from. The true power is it's like the difference between taking weed and taking heroin.
Wow, what a difference.
Yeah, heroin, like, yeah, it's like, ooh, it's super addictive, and it has, like, it's, I'm not entirely sure what the high is like. I've never done heroin, and I have no plans on doing it, but it does have severe impacts on your body. So it causes a lot of detrimental changes to your body, it increases like premature. It increases the likelihood of premature aging, and if anything, I think the true power is more of like crack, like taking crack, because like the addictive quality is there and it's more extreme.
Yeah.
But it causes your body to degrade even further. Whereas, like, the true source is like a shot of adrenaline. But because, like, it's like you feel more alive, your senses are more heightened. It's like without channeling, without the true source, it's like, is anything real? It's like the world. It's like without it, it's like the world has lost all color and all life to it. So. See, there's the clear differences. Mogedion, when she first encountered Ashamel as Morden, when she realized that he is using the true power a lot, which is noted by the presence of the saw in his eyes, she realized that he must be using it a lot. And he even used it in the last book when he helped Rand. He shot a beam of balefire at Mashadar, and Rand noticed that he couldn't even sense the weaves. So, just like channeling the true source of true power can't be detected by true power channelers. But unlike the true source, the true power is not divided into two halves, into male or female. It's just one power. It's just one singular force, which you later learned that was the main driving force for the ancient Aes Sedai into trying to find the true power. They didn't know that the true power was connected to the Dark One, but what their motive for seeking out the true power is because the true power is not divided by male or female, because since the true source is divided into a male and female half, male and female channelers really are, there's always going to be this line between them. Male channelers will be more powerful, able to channel larger quantities of power from the true source, while female channelers, they may not be able to channel that much raw power like men can. They are able to not only create links with each other to share their power with each other, they're also able to create more dexterous weaves. So more complicated, more energy efficient weaves, you could say. So like a weave that a man would create would typically use more power, women can create the same weave and it would use a lot less power. But and that was the main motivation for the ancient Aes Sedai, to trying to find the true power, to access it, was so that way they can finally overcome this final barrier between channelers. But then they realized, oh, it comes from the Dark One, and the true power, unlike the true source, which basically works in tangent with the pattern and the laws of physics and reality, the true power works by completely tearing that shit apart. So it doesn't work in tangent with the pattern. It doesn't work or abide by the laws of physics, which were set in place by the creator. It works by completely destroying and breaking those rules. Hell, Moradin opened a gateway, and whereas like for a male channeler, it's done by boring a hole through the pattern, his gateway literally tore a rift into reality itself. So it wasn't boring a hole through it, it was tearing through it.
Damn.
So yeah, so there's a lot more detrimental. The true power is more detrimental to the pattern, to reality, than the true source, because since it's coming from a dark entity, like an outer being, pretty much. That's pretty much what the Dark One is. He is an outer being. Technically, he can be technically labeled as an eldritch terror.
Yeah.
Because he is the antithesis of the creator.
Yeah.
So that's what makes the true power much more dangerous, and it technically is more powerful than the true source, but that's neither here or there. It really doesn't matter, because the Dark One consistently loses to the forces of the light, and the reason for that is because even though the Dark One is the antithesis of the creator, therefore for all intents and purposes the creator's equal, he is an omniscient being. So while he can foresee every outcome of his choices and the choices of his enemies, he is incapable of learning from them. So he knows everything, but he's incapable of learning from learning from it. So he makes a mistake once, he's doomed to repeat that mistake over and over again, because it doesn't like register to him like, oh, he made a mistake. So he's going to do it again and fail again and again and again. So that's the Dark One. And aside from Ishamel / Moradin, Agenor and Balthamel were both reincarnated. Agenor was reincarnated, and his new name is Osengar. And he's actually Osengar poses as one of the Ashaman. It's later revealed to be an Ashaman that worked directly under Rand for a bit. And Balthamel is reincarnated as Arangar. But the thing is, the Dark One was really displeased with both Balthamel and Agenor, so their reincarnated forms are less than desirable for them. While Agenor was given another male body, Balthamel his spirit was placed into the body of a woman. So he was cross reincarnated. And the thing is that instead of now being able to channel Sidar, because his spirit's in a woman's body, he still can channel Sidin. So, and this catches a lot of people off guard later on, because when he channels, they're realizing, like male channelers are realizing, wait a second, that woman is channeling Sidin. How is she doing that? And that's because, well, she was a guy in a previous life. And Lanfear is reincarnated as a woman named Sidane. And the thing about Sidane is that Sidane is weaker than her previous life. Not by much. She's no longer the strongest female channeler. And the reason for that is when she died in the realm of the Islefin, the fox-like people that exist on the other side of that sandstone doorway. She lost a portion of her power because when she was killed by them, they killed her by feeding off of her ability to channel. So she was actively channeled when she fell through the doorway. Uh, they started feeding off of her power, which in turn killed her. And when the Dark One placed her spirit into a new body, she had lost her former strength. So rather being number one, she's now more on like a second level channel. So she's more of like a number two on the power scale. Now, if you want to learn more about the channeler's power scales, you should definitely look it up. Or if you want, there is a companion guide that Robert Jordan wrote, and he describes the power levels of channelers. Um, Currently, there are only 3 women who are at the top tier. Lanfear was formerly one of them. Semiraj is another, and there is another channeler who was a former Damane named Olivia. Now, Olivia will be introduced in the next book, so I'm not really going to talk about her much in this episode, but she technically is introduced in this book because she is captured by Rand near the end of this book, which I'll go into in just a second. But Olivia is a woman who is like about 400 years old. She was collared when she was 14, so she's been a Damane her entire life.
Damn.
And when Rand releases her, she reveals to him and his allies that she has always hated the Shan-Shan, especially the Soldan, and she wants to prove herself to Rand and his allies by fighting the Shan-Shan with everything she's got. And the sad thing about Olivia is that because she was a former Damane, a lot of his allies don't trust her. They, especially the Aes Sedai and other channelers, they look at her and they're kind of wary of her, not because of her raw strength. I mean, that right there is a problem, but they're afraid that she may regress into her old ways. Like, since a lot of Damane are so thoroughly brainwashed into believing that they're nothing more than animals and they deserve to be collared, they're afraid that she may regress to that again and go back to being a Damane and allow herself to be collared again. But she makes it clear to everyone that she has no intention of being collared again. Which, good for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, what little I've seen of her, I'm on book 10 now. Like, I'm still on book 10. I'm not even halfway through it. Yeah, I've been slacking. But so far, what I've seen of her, she's badass, and she's definitely an asset to Rand's forces. But either way, if you want to learn more about the power scaling for both men and women, male and female channelers, you should definitely look up the companion guide or just Google it. If you go on the Wikia, there's a chart that goes into more detail on how their power scaling works. And I will say this, Nynaeve, while she's not the most powerful channeler, she's actually ranked 3 on that power scale. And while it was pointed out in book 4 that she was strong enough to face Moghedien and win, she's actually more on Grendel's level, who is also a rank 3. So, anyway, aside from Moradin, Osangar, Arangar, and Sedaine, none of the other deceased Forsaken have been reincarnated as of yet. I haven't seen Samael reincarnated. It was revealed that Robin will not be reincarnated because when Rand blasted him with Balefire, the blast was so powerful that his thread in the pattern was burned back so far, even the Dark One wouldn't be able to pull him back from that. So Robin is gone for good. Asmodeus will not come back either because Rand had severed him from the Dark One's control, so the Dark One will not be able to bring his soul back to life. So he's gone permanently. And we haven't seen Bilal reincarnated yet. I'm not sure if Bilal will be reincarnated, maybe revealed later on. But so far, of the original 13, that have died: Grendel, Demandred, Moghedien, Masana, and Semiraj are the only ones that have yet to have been killed and reincarnated. So, I think I've rambled up enough. Let's go ahead and talk more about the actual story. So, in this book, we're finally going to see Elaine and Nynaeve use the Weather Bowl, which they had been sent out in book 6 to find in Abu Dar.
Yeah.
And they found it towards the end of book 7. But then book 7 ended, and I was like, oh, it was such a cliffhanger because the Shan attacked, and the Aes Sedai left Abu Dar just before they attacked to go use the Weather Bowl. And then the book ended, and I was like, son of a bitch. But now, Robert Jordan didn't leave us hanging. As soon as I open this book, first thing they do is use the Weather Bowl. So, in the previous book, Elaine and Nynaeve were kind of backed into a corner. Were kind of backed into making a very unfavorable bargain with the Ethanmere Windfinders. The Ethanmere are the Sea Folk, a culture of seafaring people. Their entire culture revolves around the sea, shipping, sailing. That's their entire culture. And Windfinders are channelers who use their power to control the weather. Their weather weaving was remarked by Demandred as being even better than weather weaving. First thing they do is fix the weather, because that is exactly what they were intending to use the Bowl of Winds for.
Yeah.
So the thing is that since they know for a fact that the Dark One had locked the world into a singular season, which is like balls hot summer.
Yeah.
They know they're going to need a lot of power just to fix the weather, just to break the Dark One's hold on the world. At the very least, the Dark One's hold on the seasons. So they devise a plan to create a link with 13 channelers.
Mm-hmm.
So using 13 is the very maximum amount of that a channeler can link themselves with, or that channelers can link themselves in a circle with. And they came up with a plan to enlist the Ethanmere Windfinders to help them, because since the Ethanmere are highly skilled at weatherworking, they're the perfect people to help them use the Bowl of the Winds. The thing is, they got backed into a very unfavorable bargain with the Ethanmere when they presented this plan to them. So now, in exchange for their help for using to help them use the weather bowl, the Ethanmere will not only get the weather bowl after they're done using it, because the weather bowl is a significant artifact to their culture. In fact, the weather bowl is where they figured out how to efficiently control the weather from.
Yeah.
So the Ethanmere wanted the weather bowl. As part of the bargain, they wanted to keep it, and also they wanted to learn the secrets of the Aes Sedai. They wanted to learn the more complex weaves, how to properly link with each other, how to open gateways, how to pretty much like the knowledge of the Aes Sedai.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to learn everything. But the thing is that they want to remain independent of the Aes Sedai. They're Windfinders. They don't want their Windfinders to become novices of the White Tower. They would rather keep their independence and not be under the White Tower's thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the bargain is the Aes Sedai will have to send 20 sisters to the Ethanmere, so sisters can teach the Windfinders more advanced weaves. Pretty much teach them everything that they would learn as an accepted or as a novice. Mm-hmm. And also, as part of the bargain, the Windfinders would be free to come and go from the White Tower as they pleased. So if there was a specific weave or a specific piece of lore concerning the true source or the power. If they wanted to learn it, they were free to go to the White Tower, get the Aes Sedai to teach them, to show them to show them the knowledge, teach them everything they wanted to know, and then once they're done, they could just leave. Like, part of it, the bargain basically assured that they can come and go from the tower as much as they wanted without actually having to be novices of the tower, without having to become initiates of the tower.
Yeah.
And this was very unfavorable because, the Aes Sedai they don't do that. Like, if you're a channeler and you want to learn from the Aes Sedai, you're going to become an initiate of the Aes Sedai, and that's that. Because the Aes Sedai believe that it is their responsibility to train every channeler that they come across. If they're too weak to become an Aes Sedai, then they either just won't bother, or if that channeler doesn't have what it takes to be a fully fledged sister of the Aes Sedai, they'll make sure that girl will have everything she needs. They'll make sure that she's trained at least enough to where she won't use the power irresponsibly, and then they'll just send her on her way. But thing is that the Athan Mir collectively are a very powerful organization of channelers. The weatherworking weaves work on a scale much larger than what the Aes Sedai are used to using. So that was the unfavorable deal, but still they managed to get the Athan Mir support, and they provided a good number of Windfinders to be a part of the link. Elaine and Nynaeve also enlisted the help of the Kin, which is a group of channelers that were former runaways or washouts from the White Tower. So the thing is, the Kin prided themselves of being a secret. They believed that the Aes Sedai had no knowledge of them, and they would use their little organization to help runaways from the tower to get away from the tower and to stay hidden from the tower. And they would also take in the washouts as well and give them a place in Ebu Dar or anywhere else across the Westlands where they might be needed. Thing is, though, the Aes Sedai knew about them from the very beginning. In fact, the White Tower's reputation of always being able to find runaways, like novices who ran away from the tower, is because of the Kin, because they knew that the Kin would immediately take in the runaways and make sure that they get to Ebu Dar. And so the Aes Sedai would watch out for that, and it's like, okay, so this girl ran away, let's see what the Kin are doing. Okay, they found her and they're taking her to Ebu Dar. Great. So they'll send a message to whichever Aes Sedai is in that area, and so they'll be waiting for that runaway. As soon as they get to Ebu Dar, a fully fledged sister will be there waiting for her, and they'll drag her ass back to the White Tower, kicking and screaming if they have to.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they don't always catch every runaway. Among the kinfolk, there are runaways that have been considered runaways for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
That ran away over 100 years ago, or even longer. As part of convincing but the thing is that Elaine and Nynaeve revealed to the Kin that, yes, I knew about them from the get-go, but since they are representing the rebel Aes Sedai from Saladar, they made a deal with them saying that if they want, we'll give you all a second chance, and we'll give you the opportunity to become full Aes Sedai again. Because some of them were washouts who couldn't complete the test to become a fully fledged sister, or even complete the test to become an accepted. So they offered them a second chance, and they even offered the Kin, members of the Kin who were too weak to become Aes Sedai, to at least become part of the White Tower's organization. Even if they're not fully sisters, they'll still be given a place in the White Tower. And for many of the kinfolk, this was a very lucrative offer for them, because a lot of them really want to be a part of the White Tower. It's just that they didn't think that they had what it took, or they just didn't like the way things were being run in the White Tower, which I don't blame them, because the Aes Sedai are pretty strict and very harsh in their training of their novices.
Mm-hmm.
So And also, I think it comes down to the Black Aja as well, because since the Black Aja are so deeply ingrained into the White Tower, they make things more complicated. And while the Aes Sedai as a whole don't realize the Black Aja are doing this, the Black Aja are responsible for a lot of the bad shit that happened in the White Tower. In fact, they've orchestrated the assassination of like dozens of Amyrlin seats.
Oh shit.
Yep. Which Suan revealed to Egwene that in the secret histories of the White Tower, and particularly the Amyrlin seat, there have been quite a number of Amyrlin seats that would just suddenly die out of nowhere. And she suspects that was probably due to the Black Aja. Like maybe that particular Amyrlin seat, like those particular Amyrlin seats, either came close to discovering their existence, or they did something that the Black Aja didn't like. So they made sure that they died, and another Amyrlin seat was put in place that they knew would either go along with their plans or wouldn't be a threat to them. So, yeah, there's a lot happening, and so picking up right after Book 7,
Yep.
Elaine, Nynaeve, and Avienda, who was with them as well, open a gateway to a farm several miles outside of the city of Abu Dar. When they and their entourage of Aes Sedai, Windfinders, and Kin go through the portal, Avienda demonstrates a neat little talent of unweaving an active gateway, which typically when a channeler is no longer wants to maintain any kind of weave, they just simply release it and it'll fade on its own. But there is another method of unweaving an active weave, which is dangerous because when you do that, it's like you're pulling apart live wires, and this can cause the weave to destabilize and explode.
Oh dear.
Or you could burn out in the process, which is basically self-severing.
Mm-hmm.
And Avienda, she revealed that she learned from the Wise Ones how to properly unweave an active weave. And by doing this will remove any kind of residue left behind by the weave, making it undetectable. Because a weave as powerful as a gateway will leave a residue that another channeler can detect and even reverse engineer. So, and Avienda, she had a suspicion that somebody, maybe the Black Aja or some other unfriendly force, may try to follow them while they're trying to accomplish the mission. And she didn't want that to happen and want the gateway weave to fall into the wrong hands. So she unweaves the gateway, which freaks out the Aes Sedai that are with their group. And the gateway just vanishes rather than just close in on itself and disappear like it would when you just release the weave. So this pissed off a lot of the Aes Sedai because they're like, don't do that again, because that's very dangerous to do. But she tells them off, tells them like, I know what I'm doing. I was taught how to do it properly by the Wise Ones, and this will help ensure that the gateway weave does not fall into the wrong hands. So, putting that aside, their group heads to the farm. The appearance of the Aes Sedai freaks out the other kinfolk that are there, and they try to run away, but the kin that came with them quickly settle them down and tell them that the Aes Sedai have offered them all a place back in the White Tower again, and they just need their help getting this. They just need their help fixing the weather. So Elaine and Nynaeve gather the remaining 13 channelers for their group. This included not only themselves, but Avienda, 2 of the kinfolk, and I believe the remainder were all a assortment of Windfinders and a few other Aes Sedai. And first thing that they do is part of the bargain. They have to teach the Aes Sedai have to teach the Windfinders pretty much anything and everything they know. And the Windfinders don't know how to properly link with each other. So Nynaeve quickly demonstrates how to properly link. And before they begin linking, Elaine had actually been going through the artifacts that they had found in that storeroom with the Bowl of Winds, and she had found 3 different Angreal in that storeroom. One is like an amber turtle brooch. Another is a like 4-ringed bracelet. So it's like a bracelet with a gem on it, and it's connected by these like flat chains that go to like rings. Like if you look in the picture, Devin, I showed a picture, and it's
Future
with
Devin put
Elaine.
that picture in the video.
It's a art from. It's one of the original cover arts for this book. It shows Elaine, Nynaeve, and Aviendha standing around the Bowl of the Winds. And if you look at Nynaeve, she's the woman with the long braid going over her left shoulder.
The far
She's
right.
wearing a yellow. Yeah, she's the one on the far right. If you look on her right hand, you can see she's wearing a like an ornamented bracelet with chains leading to these connected rings. That's a very powerful Angreal, and Elaine gives that to Nynaeve. And she gives the other 2 Angreal to one of the Windfinders and also to Aviendha to help increase their power for the use of the bowl. And Nynaeve begins demonstrating to the Windfinders how to properly link. He describes it as when you want to link with somebody, the link has to be consensual. One channeler can't just reach out and establish the link with somebody who's unwilling. So you have to not only be willing, but you have to open yourself to the source, kind of like you're about to embrace it. But at the very moment before embracing the source, you just hold back, and then it's at that moment that another channeler can reach out and embrace the source through you. It's pretty much the same process of embracing the source through an Angreal. Except you're doing it through a living person, and also only women can establish links with each other. Now they can bring in a male into the link, but the thing is that the woman has to be the one to establish the link, because men cannot create links with each other.
Yeah.
So she demonstrates this with Aviendha and Elaine, and she breaks this small link she created with the 3, and she shows the Windfinders how to do it, and she brings them all into a fully powered circle. So the maximum amount of channelers that can be in one circle is 13. Now, of course, if they want to add more, they would have to actually link with men. And at that point, they can increase the circle from there. But 13 is the max, and they have a full circle of 13 ready to go. And when creating a link, the person who established the link with the rest of the channelers can actually shift control of the circle to another person. So there may be 13 channelers, but there's one person that controls the flow of all linked channelers. So so after creating the link with everyone, Nynaeve shifts the link to one of the Windfinders, who is a very demanding woman, and she acts like she's a captain of an entire boat. And honestly, the Windfinders kind of get on my nerves. I think I like the Aes Sedai better than them.
Yeah.
Either way, this Windfinder takes over, and she immediately begins directing the flow of power into the Bowl of Winds. And as she's doing this, she's weaving the appropriate weaves for working the weather, and she describes it as basically a domino effect. What she's doing is setting things in motion, and once the bowl's power goes into effect, it'll take some time for the weather to correct itself. But what they're doing right here and now is basically setting things in motion.
Yeah.
So when she starts weaving power into the bowl, it's described at first as like a 3-pointed star, and then it turns into a 4, and then 5, and increases all the way up past 10 points. And as she's doing this, as she's weaving into the bowl, the power into the bowl, the images inside the bowl begin to change. It goes from a clear sunny day to a cloudy day to a snowy day to a rainy day to lightning, and it keeps repeating itself in a cycle. Eventually, the power uh, being pulled into the bowl, the power being shifted into the bowl hits a critical mass, and the bowl begins to draw power on its own.
Mhm.
So the bowl draws power from both side in and side R. So both halves of the source. And once it begins pulling the power into itself, it shoots a beam of light into the sky. And when the channelers look closely at the beam, they can see weaves of side R being coiled around some invisible force, which they assume is the male half of the source.
Mhm.
And at the very and the beam shoots high into the sky, and at the very top, it branches out into thousands, if not millions, of individual strands that stretch for miles across the sky. If you want a good imagery, look up an image of the. It's the I forgot what it's called, but it's from the anime Attack on Titan. It's that big tree of light from the uh, I think it's called the Source. It's the dimension that Ymir, the first Titan, exists.
Spoiler alert.
And spoiler, it's been a year. That show
I
ended a
haven't
while
even
ago.
finished watching it yet.
Well,
I
that
already kind
sounds
of
like
know.
a you. That's kind of a you problem because it's already been spoiled all across that has already been spoiled all across social media. So if you're saying, "Oh, spoiler alert," like, bitch, it's been spoiled,
I will fight you.
and you'll lose, sir. And anyway, so if you want a good imagery, look that up because that's the best thing I can describe it because it's a pillar of light and at the very top the leaves branch out. So it basically kind of looks like one massive tree. And the thing is that while the power being shot into the sky is invisible to non-channelers, channelers, both men and women, can see this pillar of light for hundreds of miles around it. And Rand had actually sent some of his forces several hundred miles north of where this event is taking place, and the Aes Sedai and his shaman that are a part of the force can see the pillar of light, and they're freaking out because they don't know what the hell is going on. And unfortunately, it's not just their allies and uh, other good channelers that can see it, but it's also enemy channelers that can see it as well.
Yeah.
And that includes the Soldam and the Damane from the Shan Shan. So while they're doing this, they don't realize that the Shan Shan have actually started their invasion of Abu Dar.
Oh God.
So their forces made landfall in Abu Dar. They basically blitzed the city because they quickly march into the city. The Damane do most of the work and they wipe out a vast majority of the Abu Dharan forces. They quickly take control of the city, and Matt is pinned underneath a collapsed building, and that's the last we hear of Matt until the next book. And from here, they also notice the bowl of wind, the power coming from the bowl of winds, and they send scouts to the area. And once they finish doing what they're doing, the pillar of light disappears. But the channelers all notice that it seems like the entire area is just saturated with Sidar. It's like the very air is charged with power. And once they're done, they notice that there is a large flying animal, kind of looks like a pterodactyl. It's called a Rakan. The Shan Shan use many different strange creatures in their forces, and one of them are these bird-like creatures. They're massive. They use these creatures for scouting, and on the back of this creature is not only the pilot, I guess you could say, but also a Soldam and a Damane. They led the tracker to the scout to the farm where the event was taking place, and when they see it, when the channelers see the large creature, uh, Elaine and Nynaeve immediately point out that that is a Sean scout, and they need to attack it quickly before it goes back to report their location. There was more than one, and basically this huge group of channelers all began shooting a barrage of fireballs at it. They actually managed to kill one of them, but the other one manages to escape and heads back to Ebu Dar. Elaine and Nynaeve are freaking out. They're like, "That was the Sean. What the fuck are they doing here?" And that's when they notice that there's fires in the city. They're several miles away from it, but they can see like flashes of light and lightning, definitely being created by the Demane. And they know for a fact, they figure out that the Shan have invaded. So they immediately warn the rest of the kin and the Windfinders that are with them that they need to leave because the Shan will be sending a large force of Demane and Soldam to capture them. They're not going to kill them. They're going to capture them, and they're going to put them in collars. And while Windfinders want to return to their boats, the Aes Sedai quickly convince them that there's no point because at this point, their ships have either escaped the bay or they have been destroyed, and their Windfinders have all been collared or killed.
Oh no.
So, realizing that their only option is to escape with the kin and the Aes Sedai, they quickly gather all their supplies, and Elaine opens a gateway for all of the kin, Aes Sedai, and Windfinders to go through. Her gateway opens up into a countryside, outside of one of her family's manors. So she's transporting them all to Andor, which is hundreds of miles away. They all go through, and Avienda, and her warder Bridget are the last ones to go through. And when they go through, Elaine tells the rest of the group to go head towards the manor. She's going to ensure that the Shan aren't able to follow them through and make sure that they're not able to detect the residue left behind from the gateway. And taking an example out of Avienda's book, she begins to unweave the active gateway. And the thing is, since she does not have the experience or the talent for unweaving gateways, just like Avienda does, when she begins to pull apart the individual threads from the gateway, they begin to spark and act like a live wire, which Elaine figured was going to happen since she doesn't know how to. She has no experience in unweaving a weave like that. She kind of wanted this to happen because, for one thing, it'll ensure that the Damane aren't able to reverse engineer the gateway weave, but it'll also be a nice little surprise for the Shan when they show up, which they do. And upon seeing the open gateway, they immediately try to charge through it. Avienda and Brigitte begin firing. Avienda begins firing a barrage of fireballs into the gateway, killing pretty much anything that tries to come through it. Bridget shoots her arrows at any stragglers that try to come through. At one point, Avienda tires herself out. She quickly tires herself out because keeping up the barrage of basically like a Gatling gun of fireballs shooting at once is very exhausting. So she isn't able to keep it up for very long. Brigitte begins to pick off any stragglers that come through the gateway. By this point, Elaine has pretty much unwoven most of the gateway. The only reason why it hasn't exploded or disappeared is because she's holding it together for the most part. But now she's like, all right, we need to get the fuck out of here. So they get on their horses, or rather, Brigitte slings her over her horse, and they all ride out of the area. The Shan begin to pour through the gateway, including a pair of Suldan and Damane, and they can see Elaine actively channeling, so the Suldan commands her Damane to shield Elaine. And since Elaine is already at the ends of her wits, she's already exhausted from keeping the gateway open as well as unweaving it. The Damane is able to successfully shield her, but little do they know, Elaine's power was the only thing holding that gateway together. So as soon as the Damane's shield slams into place around Elaine, it cuts off her connection to the source, and the gateway fully destabilizes, and it explodes like a mother of all mother of all bombs.
Oh my god, Bloms.
Bloms. Mother of all bloms. So this creates a massive fireball that incinerates everything within a few hundred feet of the gateway, and this is on both sides of the gateway. So this explosion actually terrifies the Shan Shan, because the entire force that they sent to capture all these channelers, they all get wiped out. Elaine, Avienda, and Burgett almost get killed. They certainly get knocked on their asses from the explosion, but they survive, and they make it to the manor where the rest of the group is hidden. And back in Ebu Dar, the Shan Shan investigate the explosion site, and while they don't realize that it was caused by a destabilized gateway, they come to the conclusion that that it may be some sort of secret weapon created by the Aes Sedai, which should give them pause in their future conflict with the Aes Sedai. From here, Elaine travels with this large group to Camelin, where she immediately kicks out all of Rand's forces. So the Aiel, the Saldean forces led by Davrin Bashir, and pretty much any non-Andoran forces, she kicks them out of the city, and she declares that she's going to begin the process of claiming her rightful place on the throne of Camelin, the Lion Throne of Camelin. So this is it's basically like a presidential race, even though Elaine is the is the daughter heir of Camelin. That doesn't ensure that she has the right to the throne, the immediate right to the throne. So what she has to do, she has to garner support from the other houses of Camelin, the nobility scattered throughout Andor. She has to gather their support. Unfortunately for her, because of her mother, who, even though she thinks is dead, is still alive, but currently on the run from the Shan Shan as well. Her mother had actually broke ties with all of her former allies. She ostracized them and basically made it clear she wants nothing to do with her former allies. But it wasn't her fault. She was being compelled by Ravin when he was still in control of Camelin. But still, the rest of the nobility don't really... Well, they know that Lord Gabriel was actually the Forsaken Ravin. Still doesn't change the fact that Morghese had allowed herself to become enamored by Ravin, and she basically burnt bridges with all of her former allies. So now, Elaine is forced to pick up the pieces, the scattered pieces that her mother left behind. And it's going to be hard because she has little to no support from the other houses. There's few houses that do support her. There's one particular house that supports her wholeheartedly. But the thing is, the rest of the major houses of Andor support that person instead. But still, Elaine has to make her case. She has to begin doing things around the city as well as for the rest of Andor. Basically, promises have to be made. She has to make changes. She has to follow through with her promises. Figure out ways to increase her resources, increase revenue and taxes, all this other political shit. And it's really not easy. She also has to navigate other political plots. At one point, it's not uncommon for during a succession race for noble houses to kidnap potential candidates from other noble houses and hold them captive until they relinquish their right to the throne. And at one point, Elaine is almost kidnapped by rival houses. They almost kidnap her by poisoning her with a type of herb. It's like a fork root herb. It doesn't poison her particularly. It's more of like a very powerful sedative. And
Mhm.
what makes it very effective is because it also works very effectively on channelers because it prevents them from channeling when they're drugged by it.
Mhm.
But thankfully, her bodyguards were able to stop any attempt at was able to stop the attempt, and she was fine. Uh, but pretty much the rest of the book is just her trying to pick up the pieces from where her mother what her mother left her, and she's also trying to undo some of the things that Rand had done because while Rand had good intentions, it's not really the way things are run in Camelin, and tradition demands that Elaine set things right, and until she is successfully until she is successful in taking the Lion Throne and wearing the Rose Crown, she's not going to accept any kind of foreign aid. So for now, the Aiel are forced to stay outside of the city. Davern Bashir's forces have to keep to their camps outside of the city as well, and she won't accept their help at all because accepting foreign aid is a really bad way to take the throne in Andor. So from here, that's pretty much it.
Mhm.
We won't. That's pretty much it for Elaine's story. We're going to talk a little bit about Perrin real fast. So Perrin, following Rand's part of one of Rand's plans is quote unquote exiled from Kyrene because publicly Rand and Perrin had a falling out, and Rand banishes him. But it's all really a part of Rand's plan because what Rand wants Perrin to do, now that Ilian has been captured by Rand, he wants Perrin to head east to Altera, Galdean, and I believe Morandi, and some parts. He wants Perrin to go and seek out the Prophet of the Dragon. See, up until this point, a a character that was introduced in book one and book two, a guy named Masema, he had traveled with Rand in his hunt for the Horn of Valir. But in book three, they had gone their separate ways, and while they were I'm sorry, the Saladar soldiers that traveled with them were supposed to return to their homeland. They didn't all make it back, and Masema, he had become this religious zealot, preaching the coming of the Dragon Reborn, and he began calling himself the Prophet of the Dragon.
Mhm.
And the thing about Masema is that he is batshit crazy. He is completely insane, and he is uh, he's living in Delululand. He thinks Rand is this divine figure, this prophesized Messiah. I mean, he kind of is, but that's beside the point. And he began stirring up a lot of trouble in Amidisha, Altara, and Morandi and Galdia. And he started getting support from the common people. He started inciting uprisings, riots. People who follow Masema as the prophet, they themselves become like very zealous in their beliefs in the Dragon Reborn. They began raiding the countryside. They start riots in some of the major cities, and while the the military forces of these countries try to suppress them, they're very largely unsuccessful because there's a lot of them are just common people, and well, there's more common people than there are soldiers. And since these people are religious zealots, pretty much, they have little to no regard for their own life or their own safety, so they fight with that same kind of religious fever. So they're very difficult to deal with. And Rand became aware of Masema's uh, actions, and he became aware of his actions, and he wanted Perrin to go east and track down Masema and try to get him to try to get him under control.
Mhm.
So that's what Perrin ends up doing. He spends his time tracking down Masema, and he does eventually find him, but he doesn't really get far with him. He talks to Masema for a bit, and Masema, he realizes, oh yeah, Masema's this fool is crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah. Not much else happens with him. There's more that happens in book 9, but it's kind of really like more focused on Rand and Elaine. The next couple books, Rand and Elaine, and then in the next book, Matt becomes part of the huge focus. So he's alive, but he doesn't have that much of a big role in the next book, uh, aside from those the other two. And let's go ahead and talk about Rand. Okay, so thing is that Rand is now the king of Ilion. He accepted the laurel crown, which Rand now calls the crown of swords, and he's working hard to secure his hold on Ilion. He, of course, begins enforcing his own laws that he set up in Tyr and in Cairhien. He begins moving his forces around, and he's preparing for his next confrontation, and it's not with the Forsaken, but it's with the Shan Shan, because now Rand is aware that the Shan Shan have not only invaded Tanchico, but
Mhm.
has also not only invaded Tanchico and Amadisha, but has also taken over Ebu Dar. And
Oh,
this is
shit.
concerning for Rand. Yeah, this is concerning for Rand because he doesn't yet know that Elaine has already escaped, but he knows that the Shan Shan are a big threat, especially with their force of enslaved channelers.
Mhm.
But Rand has a plan. Rand has a plan. But either way, Rand spends a good portion of his time in Ilion preparing his forces, getting everything ready. He sends his forces in Ilion to the eastern borders to begin securing it and keeping it ready in case the Shan Shan decide to make their move west. Because right now, since the Shan Shan have a very powerful navy, they're going to be focusing a lot of their attention on coastal countries. So right now, the next two countries that is on their list would be Ilion and eventually Tyr. So Rand begins preparing Ilion. After a while, he decides to go back to Cairhien because he feels that his plans in Ilion have been set in motion. He's gotten everything ready, so now he needs to go take care of other matters back in Cairhien. He goes to Cairhien, and throughout Rand's story in this book, Rand is beginning to suffer the more adverse physical effects of the corrupted male half of the source. So before, Rand would experience whenever he'd embrace Sidon, Rand can sense the pure life-giving power of Sidon, but he could also feel the corruption that has tainted the source. All right. So the way it's described is Sidon is like a vast ocean of power, while it itself remains pure. The taint is like a thin layer of oil sitting on the very top of the ocean. And in order to touch Sidon, you have to touch the taint as well. You have to like go through the taint to reach the pure energy of Sidon. And so whenever Rand would embrace the source, he's not only drawing in the power of the male half of the true source, but he's also pulling in that taint as well. And before, he just felt like it just left him with this sense of uncleanliness and just like ick, just ick. And uh, here and there he'll experience like isolated waves of dizziness and nausea, but now throughout this book, anytime he embraces the source, he is experiencing extreme bouts of vertigo, dizziness, and extreme nausea. uh, in fact, it has gotten to the point where Rand has to embrace the source well before he actually needs to use it, so that way he can fight through that extreme wave of dizziness and nausea. And he goes back to Camelin because he needs to try to convince a particular Aes Sedai to join his team. And that Aes Sedai is Cadsuane Melydrin. Cadsuane was introduced in the previous book. And the thing is, Cadsuane has, for the most part, refused to work with him. She came to Camelin, to Kyrene to uh, to join him, but she's basically playing hard to get because Rand made a very bad impression on her, and she also realized that she's not going to get anywhere with him because after the events of Duma as well, Rand really doesn't trust the Aes Sedai because that kind of happens when you get stuffed into a box and tortured on a daily basis. So she has to kind of work. She has to kind of find a way to not only get him to trust her, but she also is trying to get. She's also working to get him to respect her. So she's going to eventually help him, but he's going to learn how to mind his manners around her, and he's going to need to learn how to play nice as well. So he's trying to convince her. He's also beginning to make plans to cleanse the source because he knows that he's running out of time. He's at this point he's been channeling almost nonstop for 2 years now, and the last false dragon that went mad, Logain Ablar, lasted 2 years before he went completely insane. So Rand knows he's running out of time. So it's hinting at here and there what he's planning on doing. He is preparing for a confrontation with the Shan Shan, and he's also preparing to cleanse the source from the taint. And the way he's going to do that is he's going to use a pair of ter'angreal called access keys. These access keys will allow him to tap in to the most powerful ter'angreal ever created in the Age of Legends, the Choden Call. Now, I talked about the Choden Call a little bit in the last couple of episodes, especially in episode 4 and episode 7, because these ter'angreal are so powerful that Lanfear said that with them, you could challenge the creator himself. Like, you can channel with them, you're able to channel an ungodly amounts of power.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 of them, one for men and one for women. All right. And spoiler alert, Rand will not cleanse the taint from Sidon until book 9. That is actually the climax. That will be a part of the climax of the book. But he begins his preparations here. He actually hid the access keys in Ruidian, so he went back to Ruidian and he got them, and he has them on his person now. And he's also so aside from that, he's also navigating potential plots of betrayal. He suspects that this betrayal may come from his own shaman, because he's beginning to notice that Mazrim Taim has sort of made himself into this influential leader among the Ashaman. In fact, now Taim calls himself the Mahel. So, and the ones who call him, the shaman who call him the Mahel, these guys in particular are the ones who were trained personally by, they were given special lessons by Taim, and they're the ones that call him the Mahel a lot more respectfully and a lot more fervently. So Rand has to deal with that, because he's not entirely sure if he can trust Taim 100%, and now he's starting to suspect he can't really trust his own shaman as well. But he has other things to focus on. When he returns to Camelin, he is confronted by his honor guard, the Fardarasmai, the Maidens of the Spear. Thing is that I'm disappointed in Rand because Rand has a very strong aversion to putting women in harm's way. In fact, this comes from his very conservative upbringing, because since he was raised in the Two Rivers men are raised to, well, for one thing, consider women as weaker.
Oh.
While not that's not really like more that's not really an actual belief that they're raised with, but it's more of like they're raised to believe that women need to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
And while Two River Society is technically matriarchal, they're raised with a certain deference to women in general. So Two Rivers men have a very strong aversion to raising a hand against women and wanting to protect women at all costs. While on some levels that is noble, but in this case it's detrimental because he's dealing with an entire warrior society of spear maidens. Okay, and the thing is that Rand has routinely kept them out of the fight, even though they carry his honor. They are his personal bodyguard, his honor guard. They want to be where the fight is. So wherever Rand is, wherever the fight is going to be, and if Rand's going to be there, then so are they, right? But in book 7, in the climactic fight with Samael, Rand led a small force of Bashir's Saldean horse riders and a small group of a shaman against Samael. But he left his spear maidens behind. And, well, they were pissed, to say the least. In fact, the thing is that the Aiel in general follow a very strict honor code called Jiet To. And just like that, you owe To, which is like it's like a penance, kind of like you slighted their honor, so now you got to face the consequences. The consequences is To. And so when he came back to Kyrene, all his spear maidens kind of just like, they showed up at his room and they were just giving him they were just mad dogging the fuck out of him. They were just all staring at him like you son of a bitch. Mm-hmm. And they ended up drawing lots. And three of them, the three that drew the I guess the short straw. Mm-hmm. They went into his room and they beat the fuck out of Rand. Yeah.
Oh my god, they beat the fuck out of him?
Mm-hmm. They beat the fuck out of him. Now, mind you, they didn't leave him a bloody mess. They just, they whooped his ass. They gave him a good old ass whooping to get the message across. Damn. They told him, you dishonor us by leaving us behind. You promised that you wouldn't leave us behind and that you would not keep us out of the fight. And what did you do? You kept us out of the fight and you almost died. We're the ones that are supposed to carry your honor, and yet you dishonor us by keeping us out of the fight. Make sure this never happens again. And then they just walked out. Mic drop, walked out. And so he's kind of on their shit list, and the only way he can get out of it is like next time there's a big battle, they're gonna have to be a part of it. Be damn sure that they're gonna be a part of it. And like, Rand is still reluctant to include them in any fights because he just doesn't want to get women involved in the fight. He doesn't want to allow women to get hurt on his behalf. But the thing is, Rand, my guy, they're a society of warrior women's. Okay? They can fight better than any other man that you know. Alright? They just whooped your ass. The fuck?
Exactly. Girl. Okay. They're like the Dora Milaje. Or better
I
than the
honestly,
Dolor
they.
Melage?
I have to say they're better than the Dora Milaje. The Dora, okay, look, the Dora are fantastic fighters. Okay, I'm not denying that. Okay, but here's the thing: the Dora Milaje, at the end of the day, are basically like they're like a trophy guard. They're very, they're
Damn.
very they're poofed up. They live the high life. They don't really live a harsh life. And yeah, their training is phenomenal. I'm not saying they're bad fighters.
Mm.
Okay. But what I am saying is that unlike the Spear Maidens,
Mm-hmm.
who are raised in a hostile and very harsh environment, and they're trained from a very young age on how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'd say the only edge that the Dora Milaje would have against the Spear Maidens is the fact that they have vibranium weapons and armor.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
So like the thing is that the Spear Maidens, just like the rest of the Aiel warrior societies, uh, they are only armed with a horn bow and arrow, three or four short spears, and a hide buckler.
Mm-hmm.
That is the standard. Those are the standard issue weapons that they all carry. They don't carry any other kind of weapon, besides like a long knife that they keep with them. So
Yeah.
like four short spears, a hide buckler, and a bow and arrow, and a long knife. That is it. They don't carry swords. They don't carry large spears, or they don't carry long spears or halberds. And these weapons, they're so proficient and highly skilled with these weapons that they have defeated pretty much any nation they've gone across. They've gone up against.
Damn.
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure if the Dora Milaje had a large enough, if a good sized force of Dora Milaje went up against the Spear Maidens, I'll say it would be a pretty even fight. If not, like, if not, the thing about the Dora Milaje is that they're not a very large military force.
No, they're
So
not.
they're just so. If a small group of them went up against a small group of the Spear Maidens, I'm sure they would probably have the edge because of their vibranium weapons. But if if the entire Dora Milaje force went up against the Aiel Spear Maidens, like a large squadron of them, because
That's fair.
there's tens of thousands of Spear Maidens. The Spear Maidens would probably overwhelm them.
Okay, the equivalent would probably be like what? The warrior women from the Amazons?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, the thing about the Amazons is that they all have super strength. Maybe not
That's
on the
true.
same level as like Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman is a demigod, so she has
Yeah.
godlike strength.
Yeah.
The Amazons, I was like doing some research and I found one thread that talks about the Amazons being about as strong as Captain America, so peak physical strength.
Yeah.
So as strong as a human can get. Which is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, that's pretty strong. So I'm pretty sure the Amazons would definitely have an edge over the Aiel in terms of physical strength, but the Aiel they're just badass warriors. All right, a small force of like maybe a couple hundred Aiel is more than enough to take on thousands of an entire force of maybe like 5,000 soldiers.
Damn.
Yeah,
Those are some bad bitches.
they are, and they don't even carry like heavy weapons or armor. Like, in fact, they don't even wear armor. They wear what is called a cadensor, which is like it's just basically desert garb.
Oh.
It's like I guess like the closest thing. It's not even like flowy, billowy robes or anything like that. It's actually form-fitting wear. It's typically desert colors, but when they came over when they came over the Dragon Wall and into the Westlands, they began adopting the more. They began wearing colors with their kind of sword to better blend into the environment. So more greens and browns, and hell, when winters finally begins to come in full swing after the weather bowl is used, they start wearing more white colors to blend in with the snow. And they're stupidly stealthy too. Like you can walk through a field. Like they could like all be hiding in a field, and you can walk right past them and wouldn't realize they're there. And so yeah, the Aiel are badass, and Rand needs to be careful because even though they follow him because they know, because he is their Karakarn, their version of the Dragon Reborn, he needs to get it. He needs to like get it through his thick skull that Aiel society doesn't coddle their women. In fact, they're just as they will train their women just as much as they'll train their men. So he's got to be careful because if the Spear Maidens are going to continue fighting for him, he needs to start using them.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, after navigating the political field of Kyrene and having some dealings with Cadsuane, he's not 100% successful in convincing Cadsuane to join him. She still wants him to show her more deference and respect.
Mm-hmm.
He figures he's gonna if he's gonna get her on his side, he needs to let her come to him, and kind of vice versa. She figures that she needs him to come to her. So like it's like a game. It's like a game of cat and mouse. They're eventually going to team up, and Cadsuane will eventually become his advisor. But that's not going to happen until book 9. But a little side note about Cadsuane, and a little side note about the Aiel Wise Ones. So as it turns out, part of their training is the main purpose of Aiel Wise Ones isn't just to be, wise and be advisor for clan chiefs and different septs and society leaders. They're also preserving lost knowledge as well. So the Wise Ones, I don't really know, they haven't really spoke much about the secrets that the Wise Ones are preserving, but the oldest of the Wise Ones, a decrepit old hag named Cerelia, when Cadsuane was introduced, Min commented that it would be, God, just imagine if Cadsuane met Cerelia, because those two are both old, crotchety, and very strong-willed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Cerelia is like almost 600 years old, and Cadsuane is like pushing 300. So,
damn.
While Cerelia is twice Cadsuane's age, they both have pretty much the same level of experience, and they have those very strong personalities, and they're both a force to be reckoned with. So Cerelia had gotten wind of this mysterious Aes Sedai that doesn't serve Rand quite yet, and she learns that Cadsuane isn't really working with the White Tower, at least not in the capacity that the ones who kidnapped Rand were. So after learning a bit more about Cadsuane, Cerelia approaches her and makes a proposition with her that they would both do whatever it took to ensure that Rand stays alive long enough to fulfill his end of the prophecy, because they for both as the Dragon Reborn and as the Karakorn, and the two of them do come to an understanding, and as part of that understanding, Cerelia decides to teach Cadsuane how to travel. So as it turns out, Cerelia knows how to travel. The thing is that she's very weak in the power, so she's not strong enough to open up a gateway.
Mm-hmm.
But she knows the weaves, and she actually shares the weave with Cadsuane. See, at this point, Cadsuane and the Aes Sedai that are with her in Kyrene, that includes the prisoners and the prisoners from the White Tower and the more or less willing, unwilling servants from the rebel group.
Mm-hmm.
They've been so far detached from what's going on. They're so far detached from the rebel Aes Sedai at this point that they don't know that the rebels can travel, because Egwene had figured out how to travel, and she shared that weave with the rest of the rebels. But these guys, their group doesn't know how to travel yet, but Sorelia does. So she ends up sharing the travel weave with Cadsuane, and teaches her how to properly travel as well as how to skim. Because with traveling, if you don't know that, if you're not familiar with your point of origin, you can't really travel. So skimming allows you to travel, but it's more of like you enter a void. And after dealing with some bullshit and firing, Rand goes to. He doesn't go to Camelin because since Elaine is there, he decides to leave her alone, let her do her thing, and secure her place on the throne. Because the thing is, Rand has convinced himself that Elaine really doesn't want anything to do with him, because earlier on in the series, she wrote him some letters, one proclaiming her love, and the other basically telling him that they can't be, they're from two separate worlds, blah blah blah. So he's like, it's better this way. I can't be with her, even though he loves her. All right, it's better off that they remain separate, because he's destined to die and lead the world against the Dark One and Summer Guidance. So he can't really give her much of a future.
Yeah.
Even though she moons over him just as much as he does her. But right now he's enjoying his little fling with Min. The thing is, Rand is getting himself into a bit of a sticky mess, because he's falling for 3 different women at the same time:
Mm-hmm.
Min, Avienda, and Elaine, and he slept with 2 of them. So yeah, things are getting. But I promise you guys, it's not going to be that love. It's not going to be that love triangle outcome from The Witcher 3. For those of you who know, yeah. So if you know, you know. Things actually they weirdly work out for Rand in the end.
Oh.
So for those of you who have been questioning this book, because this book is I won't lie, this book is a product of its time. It was written over 30 years ago, and it was, these books were written throughout the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Early to mid 2000s. And of course, back in those days, it wasn't exactly woke or inclusive to the LGBT and other non-traditional relationships and romances.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just spoil it for you guys. Rand gets into a quadruple with Avienda. Yep, with Avienda, Elaine, and Min.
Mm-hmm.
He basically, I think he actually does marry them, though at this point he hasn't. At least where I'm at in book 10, he hasn't married them, but he actually knocks up Elaine. And
baby,
they and the 3 of them, Elaine weaves a warder's bond with Rand, but this bond also includes Min and Avienda, so they're all bonded to him, much the same way as an Aes Sedai would bond to a warder. And it's all consensual. It's not like he's leading all 3 of them on. He admits to the 3 of them at the same, they all get together, and he admits to the 3 of them that yes, I'm in love with all 3 of you, and I know I'm a total bastard because of it, and I would understand if you want nothing to do with me. And then the 3 of them surprise the fuck out of him and say, we're cool with that, and we all want to be with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Elaine points out that so by this point, everyone in this room but me has slept with you. So I think it's time for you. I think it's time for you to, give me a turn.
Oh.
Spoilers for book 9.
Oh.
Ooh.
And
Anyway,
now.
but that doesn't happen in this book, and I spoiled it ahead of time just to give y'all a little, something about something to drool over. But anyway, Rand decides it's time to confront the Shan Shan.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that the Shan Shan, the reason why the Shan Shan are so effective in warfare is because of the Damane. No other force in the Westland have been able to take them on because of the Damane. Because they have the power at their disposal, they're able to easily overwhelm their opponents. And that's why they've been so successful in conquering Ebu Dar, Amadisha, Tarabon, and even Falm. So Rand, this is where I think this may have something to do with the madness.
Mm-hmm.
Rand's confidence got a little ahead of him, and he decides to lead a small force of his small force of like Tyrians, Kyrians, and Saldeans. Again, like it's about, let's say about 6,000 soldiers
Mm-hmm.
against the Shan Shan, who have the Shan Shan had set up outposts all across Altara, which is the country that Ebu Dar is in. And in total, he sent his forces against about 15,000 Shan Shan forces. And there was a good, maybe, I think there was probably about several dozen Sul'dam Damane pairs out there.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really say the exact number. But Rand gathers his army, and then he also goes to the Black Tower, which is where the shaman are being trained by Taim, and he gathers about 50 of his best shaman that Taim was able to scrounge up, takes them all to Altera, and he leads them on an advance against the Shan Shan. He carefully divides his forces, and for the most part, the shaman do a lot of the work, and they actually do a really great job in fighting the Shan Shan. In fact, like before he led his charge against the Shan Shan, he sent several shaman scouts, a shaman to scout the area to find where the Shan Shan outposts are, try to get a good idea of their forces and where the positions are. And several of his shaman actually came across Shan Shan patrols,
Mm-hmm.
and a single shaman wiped out like over 200 Shan Shan soldiers, and in that group there were several Damane. So he was able to that one shaman was able to wipe out that entire patrol. So that gives you an idea of how effective these shaman are. And so Rand manages to lead them against the Shan Shan and he manages to push them pretty much almost all the way back to Ebu Dar. And the thing is, though, Rand, even though like Bashir and Rand's other commanders, they advised Rand that they're getting to a point where their forces are getting too thin. They only brought about 6,000 soldiers against an army of 15,000. Not to mention the Damane.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to thin out. At this point, they need to take their wins and call it a day and regroup. But Rand himself he's getting way too overconfident here. He says no, they need to continue on, though. Bashir warns him that there's a good sized force of 15,000 Shan waiting for them, even with their shaman, because at this point he had lost maybe about almost 10 of his shaman in the fight. Well, granted, the shaman had managed to wipe out thousands of Shan soldiers. Shan soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a mouthful, and as well as either kill or capture Soldam and Damane pairs. The thing is that they learned pretty quickly not to uncollar the Damane right away, because many of the Damane have been so thoroughly brainwashed that a couple times that they tried to uncollar the Damane they captured, the Damane began lashing out in fear, saying like, "No, don't uncollar me," and they would freak out and started attacking indiscriminately. So they were forced to like collar them again and keep them on their leash until they can rehabilitate them. And in fact, that one Damane I mentioned earlier, Olivia, was one of the ones that they captured in this in their campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually captured maybe about a dozen Damane. Well, actually, no. They captured 5 successfully. The rest they had to kill because they were too combative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Soldam would rather die than be captured, and the Damane are very conditioned into the same mentality. And also, if you kill Soldam while she's wearing the bracelet, the Damane will suffer the same fate. Like, the shock of feeling the Soldam die will kill the Damane too. So they had to be careful, and they were successful in capturing about 5 Soldam Damane pairs. And Rand ends up sending them to Camelin, so that way Elaine and the Aes Sedai with her can try to rehabilitate them. So, but that's not until later. When they reach the point that Bashir is advising Rand to withdraw and take their wins, Rand says, "Hell nah." And Rand had been carrying around a long cloth-wrapped object up until this point, and he tells Bashir, "No, I am more than powerful enough to destroy the Shan," and he unwraps the object and pulls out Kalandor, the sword that cannot be wielded, and one of the most powerful sa'angreal created at the end of the Age of Legends. Now, last time we saw Kalandor was in Book 4, when Rand left it in the Stone of Tyr, because at the time he believed he was not ready to hold and control the power of Kalandor, so he plunged it into the heart of the Stone of Tyr and set some traps around it to prevent anyone from trying to steal it. But when he decided to go against the Shan, he sent one of his shaman, one of the shaman that he knew he could trust, to Tyr to undo the traps and to retrieve Kalandor for him. So Rand, taking Kalandor in hand, he begins channeling through it, and with the massive amount of energy that Kalandor gives him, he unleashes an onslaught of lightning, a huge barrage of lightning into the surrounding Shan forces, and he does wipe out a massive portion of the Shan-Chan's forces. Thing is that Rand wasn't being careful with his weave, and the lightning also began hitting some of his own forces. And Bashir ends up tackling him to the ground and begs him, "Please stop! You're killing us too." And Rand, horrified, stops channeling, and he orders a retreat. And Rand takes this as a loss, but little does he realize that the commanders of the opposing Shan forces all go running back to Ebudar with their tails between their legs, saying like, "This was the greatest defeat that the Shan have ever faced.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that comes close to this defeat was their defeat at Fall." which both times involves Rand.
Ooh.
So they go back, tails between their legs, to report their loss to the High Lord Suroth. And Rand goes back to Kyrene, and he's really reconsidering a lot of his choices, and he's realizing that he's slowly losing he's losing his composure, and he's losing control because he really got out of hand back there. So he decides that the time has come that he needs to start accelerating his plans to cleanse the taint from Sidon.
Mhm.
And but before he can even consider that, Rand is attacked by 3 of his shaman. So these shaman begin going on a rampage through the Sun Palace. Rand manages to avoid them, and little does he know, one of these shaman, a guy calling himself Deshiva, is actually Osingar, the reincarnation of Agenor. They attack him and they wreak havoc in the castle. He avoids them, and he also tries to avoid as many of his spear maidens as possible because he doesn't want to involve them in this fight. And I can't blame him. This is a fight between channelers, and his spear maidens aren't going to be able to do much against them. So he manages to corner the 3 of them, and he attacks them. He doesn't manage to kill them, and they don't manage to kill him, but they do cause a lot of damage in the palace itself. Thing is, this causes in the aftermath of this fight, a lot of rumors begin to spread throughout Kyrene that Rand has lost his mind and has succumbed to the madness. Now, Rand doesn't do anything to dissuade these rumors. Instead, he sets one of his most loyal Kyrenan nobles as as a steward over Kyrene.
Mhm.
He leaves him in charge, and he goes to Tyr, sets one of the Tyrene High Lords, one of the Tyrene High Lords as a steward over Tyr, and he goes to Ilion and sets a steward of Ilion. And after ensuring everything is set in place, he, alongside Min, travel by gateway to somewhere north of, I believe it was Tarvalon, but in reality, it's revealed later on that he's actually going somewhere else entirely. But when he gets there with Min asks him, "So what's the plan? Why all the secrecy? Why all the cloak and dagger? Right? Why let the people believe that you're dead, or worse, have gone mad?" He says, "Well, there are traitors in my forces, and I need to deal with them. But ultimately, I'm going to cleanse Sidon." And that's where book 8 ends.
Oh, the tea.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, when I started reading book 9, I was like, yes, I've been waiting for this, because I spoiled it for myself. I was really curious, because for pretty much since book 1, if you read this far, if you followed along, you've known that any male channeler, that any man that discovers they can channel will eventually go mad because of the corruption on Sidon.
Yeah.
And if you watch the show only, it's the same thing. Rand is eventually Rand is going to go mad because he's been channeling. He is being exposed to the taint. He's going to go mad. So, and eventually he's going to have a big confrontation with the Dark One. And we don't know how long that's going to be. That could be years down the line,
Yeah.
right? So how is Rand going to last that long without succumbing to the madness? So I was like, all right, I have to know. So I Googled it, and I asked, does Rand cleanse the taint from Sidon? And the answer is yes. And I was like, when? And the when is book 9 of Winter's Part. So I was like, shit. Because when I spoiled it for myself, I was on book 1. So I had 8 more books to go.
Damn, you really spoiled that for yourself that
I
early.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't care. I don't mind spoilers. But if anything, it made me more like I was more feverish. Like, oh, I want to know. I want to know. Like, let's go. Let's go. Well, I read all my books. I've been reading the series all on ebooks. So swipe, 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 swipe. Like, come on, come on. Like, I was just devouring these books. And hell, there was a bunch of other events that happened throughout these books that I was like, oh, this is a surprise. That's interesting. The Battle of Dumai's Well, his confrontation, Nynaeve's confrontation with Moghedien in book 4, Rand getting stuffed into a box and tortured leading up to Dumai's Well. Uh, let's see, his confrontation with Ravin, with Samael, all of these events, and then of course what happened in this book with the Weather Bowl and the confrontation with the Shan. These were all like pleasant, like, oh my god, oh my god, like, am I aroused? Like,
Not
oh.
aroused.
Well, because it's actually it's such a good story. All right, and like I want to take a minute to talk about a few things too, because like when I'm considering how the power works in the Wheel of Time, it really comes down to gender assigned roles, and that can be problematic in this day and age because now people are all about breaking gender roles and gender stereotypes. And while the power, the true source, is not like a staunch like, oh, men can only do this, women can only do this. It's not about that. It's more of like it's more of like pointing out the, like, yes, there are differences between men and women. All right. Men are naturally stronger than women. All right. And not saying that to be like some sort of incel, like, oh, men are better than women, right? Like, we're stronger than women. It is a physiological fact. All right. I'm gonna leave it at that, right? And that is showcased with the male half of the true source. Male channelers are naturally stronger in the power. They're able to draw more power from the source, and they're able to do more things in terms of raw, due to their raw strength. And the women, on the other hand, while it may be weaker in the power, that doesn't mean they are not equal to men, because there is a balancing act between both halves of the true source.
Yeah.
All right, women have advantages that men don't. All right, and that is very true in real life as well. All right. Women in female channelers can create links with each other to share their power and make themselves stronger, and they're able to create more dexterous weaves. So they can achieve more complex weaves than a man ever could, right? And also, like, in terms, I want to like give this shout out to the trans community, because like if you're thinking like, well, how would like trans work in this story as well? We're going to use Balthamel / Arangar as an example, because Balthamel was born a man and he therefore channels Sidon. But when he died and his spirit was placed into the body of a woman, it was revealed that it is your soul that determines your connection to which half of the source. So since his spirit is male, he's still able to channel, even though his spirit is inhabiting a female's body. So that got me thinking, and I was like, what if trans people existed in this world? And as it turns out, the whole, men being born a woman, but you're a man trapped in a woman's body, or vice versa. It has more the potential to have more substance in this story, because what if a channeler is born with a woman is born with a male spirit, and therefore they have a connection to Sidon?
That's interesting. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. Now, maybe I don't know if they'll ever explore that in the Amazon show. I mean, sadly, while the majority of the Alphabet Mafia is getting a lot of recognition, even in the Amazon show. We're not seeing a lot of love for the trans community.
Yeah.
But they could explore that, and that would be really interesting if they explore that. Like, oh well, like there's an Aes Sedai there was an Aes Sedai that was born with a connection to Sidon rather than Sidon, and she ends up succumbing to the madness, which freaks everyone out because sadly the male half of the true source is tainted right now. Or what if like there was a man born with a connection to Sidon? Right, and it's like, oh, he's channeling Sidor. What the fuck?
Yeah, there definitely is a story that could be told.
There is, and
or explored, especially
yeah, and
when it comes to that villain who gets reborn.
Yeah, exactly, and also like the thing is that since this was written in the 90s and the mid 2000s. This series was written through like the 90s and the mid 2000s. There's not a lot of LGBTQ representation. There are hints that it does exist in this world.
There are lesbians everywhere. And gay men like everywhere.
I mean, yeah, there is. It's just
at least in the show, they show it like all over the place.
Yeah, there is, and the thing is that there are hints of it in this book. Like, there's at one point where Elaine decides to create an honor guard for herself in Camelin, and they're all women. They're being recruited by her warder Bridget, and thing is she makes a note about one of her new honor guard, who she has like a kind of like a gaydar moment.
Oh.
Where Elaine's like, I can't help but notice this one guard doesn't really show that much interest in men. She might not even like men romantically. But hey, go off. Like, it was like one of those moments where it's just like, oh, okay,
wee woo,
go off.
gaydar, wee woo.
But she's not entirely sure. And I mean, come on, she's surrounded by a bunch of butch women. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of her new honor guard are butch lesbians. All right, and hell, even though Balthamel was placed into a woman's body, he immediately, like, at first he was pissed. Like when there was the scene where it was after he was reincarnated and he was being given his new orders by the Dark One. Mm-hmm. He was pissed because he realized that his spirit was put into a woman's body. Like, he was pissed. But the Dark One basically told him to, suck it up or die. And he was like, all right, I'll suck it up. And it doesn't take him long to embrace his newfound femininity, because she's basically throwing herself at both men and women at this point. And I'm like, oh. So we got a bisexual in the Forsaken. Hello,
bisexual queen.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta tell you, at least either Samael or Demandred is gay. One of those two is gay, because the two of them were okay. No, I think no, not Samael, but I'm pretty sure Demandred had a gay boner for Luz Theron. Ran, because Samael was described as always being jealous of the dragon.
Yeah.
And that jealousy was just more of like, I could do it better. It's more of that machismo type of like, he's not that great, I'm better. Like, I can do better. Right? Demandred had a strange, obsessive, like, hate boner for the dragon. Like, he hated Luz Theron. And I'm just like...
I'm sure he did. Side eye.
And the thing is, Demandred has not had much of a role yet. Like, we haven't had, like, full-on, like... He hasn't really been that involved in the story up until this point. He's appeared several times, like, while Lanfear, Grendel, Samael, and Robin were meeting in secret with each other.
Yeah.
Demandred had been meeting in secret with Masana and Semiraj. So those three were definitely working together, but I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised given
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Demandred was like had that kind of ting.
Ding.
And Grendel, let me tell you, total pansexual. Because she's like Cersei Lannister,
Oh,
except
yeah.
without the incest. That's the best way to describe her. She's like Cersei Lannister, but without the incest.
Minus the incest.
Yeah. Like, so the thing about Grendel is that in the Age of Legends, before she joined the Dark One, she was actually world renowned at being one of the best psychologists in the world, because her specialty was a form of, let's call them antidepressant weaves. So she was very skilled at using a specific type of mind altering weaves that helped her to cure mental illnesses. Like depression, anxiety. She used her weaves to help to regulate and correct the chemical imbalances in your brain. But the problem is that these weaves were very similar to forbidden weaves known as compulsion weaves. So basically mind control weaves. And well, she got what drove her to joining the Dark One was because she got a little carried away and started using her weaves to control people. And she got so good at it that now, 3,000 years later, she is the most powerful. She is the most skilled at compulsion weaves. Like, that's her specialty. And hiding in Arid Domain, like, she's in the capital of Arid Domain right now, and she has dozens of people under her complete control. Like, she has a very obscene fascination with beautiful people, both men and women. If they fit her aesthetic, she will place them under her control and have them service her in many different ways. Yeah, she a hoe. She a hoe. And she is definitely, at the very least, she is definitely bisexual. I say pan because, well, let's go with bisexual. Because her standards apply to both men and women. So she is definitely a bisexual. And Masana, I don't know enough about Masana just yet because she's had a very small role. But I'm calling it cat lady lesbian.
A cat lady lesbian, not a cat lady lesbian. One kiss ain't what I call PDA. I'm over here making out with them in front of the camera. If you want to see that, you're going to have to pay for that.
You really going to do this? You're really doing this in front of my podcast?
Yeah. I mean, this part's going to get taken out, but yeah.
All right, whatever. Anyway, I'm calling it. I'm pretty sure Masana is a hardcore lesbian. If not her, then probably Semiraj. Wow. One of those two is a lesbian.
Lesbian.
Right.
Let's be honest.
One of those two is a lesbian. Thing about those two is that, like Grendel, Semiraj was a world-renowned healer. In fact, she was the best healer in the world. Her healing weaves were so powerful, she can heal anything save death. Problem is that she's a sadistic psychopath, and she liked to inflict as much pain as possible during her healings. So while she was being whisked around the entire world to perform healings on hundreds of different people a day, she would deliberately cause them pain during their healing. Now, initially, no one complained because they assumed that was just a part of the healing process. But eventually, enough of them reported that they experienced they were experiencing excruciating pain during the healing process. And the higher authorities in the Age of Legends put two and two together and realized that Semiraj was deliberately inflicting pain on her patients. And they arrested her. And they gave her two options. She's either to swear oaths of fealty on a binder and have half of her life, basically have her life shortened in half, like cut in half, and become a public servant for the rest of her life, or be severed.
Ooh.
And for those of you who have been following along with the story,
Obviously,
yes,
she chose neither one.
yeah, she chose. She didn't choose either of them, and when the Dark One's prison was bored into, she fled. She fled. When the Dark One touched the world, she fled and she joined the Dark One.
Yeah.
And became known as Semiraj. And because she is the most bloodthirsty out of all of the Forsaken. In fact, in the territories that she controlled, whenever agents of the light were captured and they found out that they were going to be held under Semiraj, trigger warning, they would try to take their own lives because they would rather die than be held in captivity by Semiraj.
Yeah.
And then Masana, hers was more of out of like, her reasoning was more out of pride and feeling slighted by the authority, by like the scholar, the academic community, because Masana, she originally wanted to become a researcher at the Sharome. The Sharome was this institution of higher education and knowledge. It was at the Sharome that all types of experiments were being conducted using the power, as well as, and it's also technology too. The thing about the Sharome was that it was a sphere that floated in the sky, and it wasn't floating because of the power. It was being held in the sky out of pure technological advancement. All right. Why did they make it into a huge floating sphere? Because they could.
Yeah.
But Masana had originally applied to be a researcher at the Sharome. But the thing is that they kind of laughed at her. The leaders in the Sharome kind of laughed at her and said, "Your talents would be better suited as a professor." And for her, this was incredibly insulting because she believed that she had more to contribute to the academic society than just being a professor.
Yeah.
Educator. I mean, she kind of lives up to the whole educator thing. Because while it's not really known who she is in the White Tower, like who she's disguising herself in the White Tower, it's hinted that she's taking a role as an educator for the novices. And Semiraj kind of made a jab at her about doing that, and that pissed her off. That pissed Masana off to no end.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I gotta say, a lot of the Forsaken, their reasoning for joining the Dark One was either pure selfish intent or because they were actually scumbags.
Either way, they're pieces of shit.
Yep. But yeah. Anyway, just want to say, for those of you who were unsure of getting into this story, mainly because I know a lot of people want to see more LGBTQ like representation in literature.
Yeah.
I will say, thing is, unfortunately, Robert Jordan passed away in the late 2000s before he could finish the entire series. And while Brandon Sanderson took over and finished the story for him, we're not going to see more from the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, there's not going to be any future stories that would set in the world of the Wheel of Time that will have more LGBTQ inclusion. I mean, if you look at it, from this perspective, in the Age of Legends, the Age of Legends was a time of high technological advancement and societal advancement and enlightenment. So, and as we've seen, even in modern society, the more advanced and the more accepting we become, the more prevalent the LGBT community becomes as well.
Yeah.
So, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of openly gay people in the Age of Legends,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate the Amazon Prime TV show for having more inclusion in the with the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And also they really live up to how diverse the Wheel of Time is. Even in the books, it is very diverse. It's not just all like a bunch of like it. What the Westlands it can be compared to Western Europe, but it's not all a bunch of like Caucasians.
Yeah.
All
Or the
right.
mountains of Caucasus.
Yep. It has a lot of elements from different cultures and society, different cultures from around the world, from like English, Western European, to like Asian. Like the Shan Shan are definitely based off of the Mongolian Empire, and Tyr. I would say Tyr is more akin to something like Indian or Indonesian society. Kyrene is definitely more of like Kyrene, and Andor is definitely more Western Europe. Tarvalon is like I'd say Tarvalon is the American of the America of the series because it's very diverse. The Aes Sedai have members from all over the Westlands. Well, there's a nation on the other side of the Aiel Waste called Shara, and I'm pretty sure Shara is very similar to may have elements of like African society. I don't know yet because that while it's been mentioned, they haven't had a role yet in the story, and I don't think they will until like the last the last 4 books. Because I'm on book 10 and they haven't showed up yet. And I think that's where Demandred is hiding, but I don't know. We don't know where he's hiding yet. The Athan Mir are based off of the Polynesian cultures, the the Maori, the Pacific Islander cultures. So there's a lot of diversity, and I appreciate it, and I enjoy the story. And hopefully you guys do too. I mean, if you've made it this far into the story, we're on book 8, and we're doing book 9 next week. Hopefully you can stick with us to the end, because I think it's worth it. I think after next week episode, we're probably going to take a break, because at that point we're going to be pretty much caught up to where I'm at.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm on book 10, and we're going to be doing book 9 next week.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So, Devin, if you want to go ahead and do some if you want to go ahead and start reviewing some of the books you've been reading.
Yeah, I have a list of notes I've been keeping from the books I've been reading.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and
a couple of those.
So after book 9, we're probably going to be doing a few extra books. We will make that decision next week, because that is a next week us decision, Devin and Jacob decision, not a day decision. Yeah. But the decision we are making right now is that this is the end of this episode. Thank you for listening in, watching us as we talked about book 8 of the Wheel of Time, Path of Daggers. And we hope that you can join us next week as we review book 9 of the Wheel of Time, Winter's Heart.
Oh, wow. How whimsical. Until then.
Until then.
Bye.
Bye.